Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. It's Friday, February 5th, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Kim Muk-yeon. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. With mass vaccination campaigns ongoing across the globe, the number of worldwide COVID-19 vaccinations on Wednesday surpassed the total number of cases since the pandemic began. South Korea reports 370 new COVID-19 cases Friday, inching below the 400 mark. South Korea's health authorities are expected to announce plans today on whether to use AstraZeneca vaccines to inoculate the elderly. And U.S. President Joe Biden has delivered his first major speech on foreign policy. With diplomacy a core principle, Biden unveiled several changes, including the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Germany. Our top story this morning, the total number of COVID-19 vaccines administered throughout the world has now surpassed the total number of infections. However, concerns remain about giving AstraZeneca's vaccine to the elderly. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
The number of COVID-19 vaccinations worldwide on Wednesday surpassed the total number of cases since the pandemic began. According to the University of Oxford's vaccine tracker, the number of doses administered reached 105 million, while the number of confirmed cases was at 103.5 million. As of Thursday, the number of jabs administered topped 107 million across 81 countries. Data also revealed that while vaccination rates are accelerating rapidly, the rise in the number of COVID-19 cases is slowing. However, experts say it's mostly due to strict countermeasures in place rather than the vaccines, as they have not yet affected transmissions in most places. Currently, Israel is the only country where vaccines are reducing transmission, as inoculations there have been rolled out more extensively and rapidly than anywhere in the world. Meanwhile, recent data from the University of East Anglia with UK government funding shows Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccine gives people about 90% protection from the virus after 21 days from just a single jab. The results counter to an early study which suggested a single dose only provided 52% efficacy. EU nations continue to rule out AstraZeneca's vaccine for the elderly, as France, Poland, and Sweden have recommended against its use for older people, joining Germany and Italy. Other countries have issued their own recommendations. Finland recommends the AstraZeneca vaccine for those 70 and under, while other countries have much lower recommendation age, with Poland at 60 and Belgium at 55. However, the UK drug maker continues to insist its vaccine is safe and effective for all adults. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And with the COVID-19 situation in South Korea, the nation reported 370 new cases of COVID-19 Friday. The figure ticked down slightly to below 400, but concerns remain as high as local transmissions of COVID-19 variants. Of the new cases on Friday, 351 were locally transmitted, most of which were in the Greater Seoul area, and 19 were from overseas. The total number of cases has now surpassed 80,000. Meanwhile, amid controversy over the lack of data on the effectiveness of the AstraZeneca vaccine on elderly people, Korean health authorities are expected to announce their decision on the vaccine today. Despite mass COVID-19 vaccinations being carried out in many parts of the world, the international community is still seeing a rising number of deaths caused by the virus. Over the past 12 months alone, Italy has confirmed over 90,000 COVID-19 deaths. Our Kim Hyo-san reports.
The novel coronavirus has infected over 105 million people around the world as of Thursday, with the accumulated death toll standing at roughly 2.3 million. In Italy, the first country in the West to be hit hard by the pandemic, more than 90,000 deaths have been reported since the pandemic first emerged a year ago. The country has the world's sixth largest death toll, trailing behind the U.S., Brazil, and Mexico. The U.S., with the world's highest COVID-19 death toll, continues to grapple with a rapid surge in the number of fatalities. The country's accumulated death toll surpassed 450,000 on Thursday. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that its COVID-19 death toll could reach 530,000 this month. Struggling with a third wave, Japan's accumulated caseload topped 400,000 on Thursday. Its daily death toll from the pandemic continues to hover around 100 for the past several days. Tokyo is also tightening quarantine rules for inbound travelers coming in from countries that have reported new COVID-19 variants believed to be more transmissible than the original strain. This comes as 2 cases of the new variant stemming from South Africa were reported in the Kanagawa prefecture, south of Tokyo. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 fatality rate in Africa is higher than the global average of 2.2%. According to the chief of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, over 93,000 people have died from the virus across the 54-nation continent, leading to a fatality rate of 2.6%. He also noted that COVID-19 vaccines have begun to arrive on the continent, with 16 countries having requested a total of 114 million doses of the 270 million doses the African Union has secured from various sources. Kim Hye-sun, Arirang News.
Declaring America is back, U.S. President Joe Biden delivered his first major speech on foreign policy. With diplomacy a core principle, Biden unveiled several changes, including reversing foreign policy decisions made under the Trump administration. Our Choi Min-jung has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden declared the return of America and diplomacy during his first speech on foreign policy.
America is back. America is back. Diplomacy is back at the center of our foreign policy.
Speaking at the State Department on Thursday, Biden reasserted the country's global leadership and unveiled several policy changes, reversing some of the Trump administration's policies. One of the several changes to Biden's foreign policy concerns the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Germany. The president announced that he would put a hold on his predecessor's decision to remove forces and assured that some 36,000 soldiers will remain in place. This move reverses the Trump administration's decision to withdraw and redeploy some 12,000 troops from Germany after disputes over the share of defense costs. The global review of U.S. troops can be seen as a critical move for countries like South Korea, as issues regarding defense cost sharing and a reduction in the number of U.S. Army personnel is not completely off the table. During the speech, Biden also made reference to China as the country's most serious competitor.
We'll also take on directly the challenges posed by our prosperity, security, and democratic values by our most serious competitor, China.
The president vowed to confront Beijing on issues dealing with economic policy, human rights, intellectual property, and global governance, but added that the U.S. will be ready to work with China when it's in the country's interest to do so. Biden also announced the end to U.S. support for offensive operations in Yemen, as well as goals to drastically raise refugee cap levels lower during the Trump era. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
5 days have passed since the coup in Myanmar when the military seized control and detained Aung San Suu Kyi. World leaders are demanding her immediate release, including U.S. President Joe Biden. The UN Security Council also says it's deeply concerned. Our Choi Jung-yun reports.
As tensions keep rising in Southeast Asia, the UN Security Council has called for the immediate release of all those detained under Myanmar military's takeover. The Council also pledged to continue supporting Myanmar's democratic transition.
They stressed the need to uphold democratic institutions and processes, refrain from violence, and fully respect human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law.
The 50-member body also condemned restrictions put on civil society and the media. This comes as Myanmar's military blocked access to Facebook across the country, which had been used by citizens to coordinate opposition to the coup. However, the council stopped short of directly condemning the military takeover. The initial text drafted by the UK condemned it, but the language was softened with no direct reference to a coup. It was revised to win support from veto-holding Security Council members, China and Russia, who have traditionally shielded Myanmar from any significant council action. Addressing Myanmar's military coup as one of 2 new crises during his first weeks in the White House, U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday demanded the military step down and free the detainees.
The Burmese military should relinquish power they have seized, release the advocates and activists and officials they have detained, lift the restrictions on telecommunications and refrain from violence.
President Biden is also considering an executive order and restrictions that can make the military's power grab more difficult to maintain. Biden said he's in touch with the Senate about a bipartisan response to urge Myanmar's military to end the coup, as well as working with international partners to address the arrest of the country's de facto civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Choi Jung-yun, Arirang News.
The United States has once again confirmed that it's currently reevaluating its policies towards North Korea. In the meantime, a U.S. intelligence official says that the regime's fear over internal instability may be a reason why it can't let go of its nuclear arsenal. Our Kim Da-mi has the details.
With no detailed North Korea policy announced yet, the Biden administration says it's still reviewing its plans. Regarding the possibility of another Pyongyang-Washington summit in the future, the U.S. National Security Advisor remained tight-lipped.
We are conducting a review of our policy towards North Korea as we speak. President Biden told President Moon last night that that review is underway and that we will consult closely with our allies, particularly the ROK and Japan, in doing that.
The two leaders of South Korea and the U.S. agreed on Thursday to cooperate on the North Korea issue. In an interview with NBC last weekend, U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken said Washington will review its policy on the regime across the board. He pointed out that Pyongyang's denuclearization issue has gotten worse over time. Also on Thursday, a U.S. intelligence official said Pyongyang fears internal unrest more than foreign attacks. In a virtual seminar, Sidney Seiler said that may be a reason why the regime may not give up its nuclear weapons in the future. Seiler, however, noted that the nuclear situation could be resolved once the issue of state stability can be addressed. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Latest trade data shows that South Korea posted a larger account surplus than last year than in 2019. According to the Bank of Korea, the surplus came to around $75 billion in 2020, up 26% on year. Exports fell because of the COVID-19 outbreak, but that was offset by imports, which decreased even more. Due to the virus, exports went down by about 7% in 2020 compared to the previous year, but imports fell by about 9%. The massive reduction in overseas travel also contributed to the surplus. South Korean tech firms clinched top spots for U.S. patent grants among global corporate giants last year. According to a report from the U.S. Intellectual Property Owners Association, Samsung Electronics Corporation held on to the number 2 position in the U.S. patent grants for the 14th year with more than 8,500 grants in 2020, down 1% from the previous year. South Korea's LG Group came in third with more than 5,100 patents, up 4% on year. On top of the list was America's IBM Corporation with 9,400 plus grants, keeping its position from the previous year. During the Lunar New Year, families traditionally come together and perform a ritual to honor their ancestors. But due to COVID-19, coming together won't be possible this year. So there's now a new trend of performing ancestral rites online. Our Kim Yeon-sing reports.
Koreans traditionally start the Lunar New Year by visiting the final resting place of their deceased family members. The whole family comes together to perform a traditional ritual in honor of their ancestors.
Now, this is the ritual room where visitors would usually come to pay their respect to their loved ones. Now, if you see inside, on that table over there, visitors would usually lay food as an offering to their ancestors, and they would also burn incense to connect with the world beyond.
But not this year.
Unasu Memorial Park will close down during the Lunar New Year holiday. The ritual room is also shut down for about a month due to COVID-19.
Most memorial parks in South Korea have taken similar measures to prevent visitors during the pandemic. But this doesn't mean that the traditional values of honoring ancestors have been lost.
As family gatherings are no longer possible due to COVID-19, there's now a new culture of performing ancestral rituals online.
This online service provides a recent picture of the ancestors' burial site. It also fills in for the actual ritual by providing these realistic illustrations of a ritual table. People can pick which food or flowers they wish to lay on the table. Users can also share the link with others, so that families can perform the ritual simultaneously even when they are apart. Seoul Crematorium is providing another online service to remember the dead. They have something called the Post Office to the World Beyond. Here, people post letters to their loved ones and say whatever they didn't get a chance to say before. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Good morning. It was chilly, but today's morning commute was pretty bearable. Then much more comfortable temperatures are in store, with highs climbing 3 to 7 degrees higher than yesterday across the country. So it could even feel like early spring with decent air quality. Meanwhile, East Coast regions remain under dry weather alerts. East of Gangwon-do province is under a dry weather warning, and strong winds will continue through early tomorrow there, so please be extra careful if you have to handle fire. Jeju, however, will see 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall this evening, and it could turn into snow in mountainous regions on Jeju Island. Elsewhere, we'll have more clouds than Thursday, and highs in the south will be in the double digits, topping out at 12 degrees Celsius over on Jeju. The warmth stays with us through the weekend, but we'll have to check the dust levels. Then early next week, do expect a return to chilly temperatures. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us at the hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Winter sports facilities that had to close temporarily have been permitted to reopen.